Hi, I'm Marvin Plackett, and today is Tuesday, July 14th. Sorry I'm a couple minutes late. Greetings to all residents, to all staff, and to all guests. One staff person has fully recovered since my report yesterday, and one new staff person has been added. So that means that we continue to have 4 active cases of COVID-19 at Episcopal homes at this time. 1 resident and 3 staff. The new staff person that was added works in Kinder Village. The last time they were scheduled was Wednesday of last week, and they were tested. Just found out late yesterday or early this morning that they tested positive. So they haven't been here now for the last 5 days, 6 days. But in any case, they tested positive, and so that person, we wish them a speedy recovery. And for the staff person that returned, they were a Gardens staff member, and so we're delighted that they are back with us. Let's see, and of course the resident that is positive, they are on our dedicated COVID unit at Episcopal Church Home on our 2nd floor. So we also wish them a recovery. They have had COVID now for quite some time. The Gardens, floors 6 and 7, you will recall last week that all the residents and staff were tested on those 2 floors. Somewhere around 80 or 85 tests were given, and all but 5 of the tests have come back negative. So we're just awaiting results on the remaining 5. Hopefully those are also negative, so that's certainly a good sign. We're delighted about that. It would have been Friday, last Friday, that a story came out in at least I saw it in the Star Tribune. I think it was actually Saturday morning. Also, Minnesota Public Radio ran the story, and probably Pioneer Press did, and some other outlets ran the story about how the state opens long-term care to visits from outside essential caregivers for the first time since mid-March. And I want to thank Michelle. Michelle, thank you for asking me about this. I should have commented yesterday, and I didn't, so I'm really glad that you reminded me to do this. Michelle has, her parents live at Episcopal homes. One is at Iris Park Commons, and the other is at the Gardens. So thank you for nudging me on this one, Michelle. Here's the article. For the first time since mid-March, outsiders will be allowed into Minnesota's long-term care homes to visit residents. The Minnesota Department of Health put out new guidance Friday that allows residents to designate an essential caregiver to visit them inside their residence and to have physical contact with them. The guidance indicates that those caregivers would likely be a family member, friend, volunteer, or other and close outside caregiver who had provided regular support to the resident before or during the pandemic. The designated caregivers, state officials said residents could have more than one, would be screened for COVID-19 symptoms, would need to follow social distancing guidelines in the home with staff and other residents, and would be required to wear personal protective equipment such as face masks when inside the facility. So the health department has given a very long list of guidelines to nursing home administrators and to managers of assisted living facilities. So for us, once again, that long-term care here, that's Episcopal Church Home, that is the Gardens, and that is Iris Park Commons. So all 3 of those, the top person, the administrators and the manager for those 3 facilities, they are right now working with their teams on the guidelines, because the health department made it clear that each facility needs to, based on their situation, they need to carve out the guidelines, or they need to fill in the blanks. They need to provide the specifics whereby the designated caregivers need to follow and to live by those rules. So right now, that's Melissa, Keenan, and Deborah. They are working on those on those guidelines. So within the next few, and they have until July 25th per health department requirements to produce those plans. And so within the next few days, so today's the 14th, another 11 days, I would expect within a week you are likely going to be seeing some additional written instructions that pertain to designated caregivers being allowed to enter the Episcopal Church Home and Iris Park Commons and the Gardens. As you know, Visitors are allowed outside at this time. That's already been the case now for about 3 weeks. But visitors being allowed inside, that hasn't yet occurred, but it's now about to occur. And so be watching for updates. I will certainly, somehow we're going to get the word out to everybody as to when the guidelines are ready. All right? Just a reminder, everyone, be vigilant. Social distancing, wearing a mask. If you're going to get together with anyone, only in small groups, and when you do, social distancing, wearing a mask is really important, and outside is better than inside. All these things, they really matter. They're not a guarantee. It's not 100% proof that you won't get it. However, it goes a long way, per the experts, goes a long way to keeping you safe, keeping everybody else around you safe. So we all need to be vigilant. Thank you so much. And now for some closing words from Phil Rose. See you tomorrow at 1:30. Bye-bye.
Good afternoon. It's good to be here. I wanted to connect base. I don't know what that means. I wanted to mention a cartoon that I had seen last week. It's a cartoon of a teenage girl, and the first panel, she's in her room, and she's reading the book Diary of Anne Frank. She comes out of her room, and her mom says, "Honey, how are you doing with this whole pandemic thing and quarantining?" And the third panel is her with the book by her side saying, "Mom, I'm doing fine. I'm doing just fine." And I think that historical perspective that cartoon gives us, the idea that as humans we can rise above many, many things, is something that's really important for us. To keep in mind the courage and the integrity of someone like an Anne Frank, who under very difficult situation was able to do everything that she needed to do to keep her family safe. And that historical perspective, I think, is really important for us. Sadly, last week, I also heard a comment from a historian who studies plagues, and she said that she has been disappointed to see that throughout this country, there are folks that are reacting the same way that people did, not just during the 1918 flu, but literally during the way people reacted during the Middle Ages, with a very selfish approach, without thinking about the common good, without thinking that I'm wearing this mask for others, and that she brought back that idea that history, it may not repeat itself, but it rhymes. And I think that that's a really important thing for us to keep in mind. And bringing all of that together, I came across a quote from Brian McLaren, who is a theologian that I appreciate a great deal. In this pandemic, many of us are nostalgic for the old normal. We want to get back to our favorite coffee shop, our favorite restaurant, our church service. And of course, there's nothing wrong with so many of those desires for the old normal. But I'd like to make a proposal. If we are wise in this time, we will not go back unthinkingly to the old normal. There were problems with that old normal many of us weren't aware of. The old normal, when you look at it from today's perspective, was not so great. Not something to be nostalgic about, without also being deeply critical of. As we experience discomfort in this time, let's begin to dream of a new normal that addresses the weaknesses and problems that were going unaddressed in the old normal. If we're wise, we won't go back, we'll go forward. Thank you for listening, and I will be back in about 20 minutes with the Catholic service.